of 716 Sports, and today's guest is Ryan.
Hey, Robby, thanks for having me on the show here on a very special 716 day. I have my Buffalo Bills, City of Buffalo flag hat on just for today. So I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Um, how do you think our quarterback is going to do this year?
I think Josh Allen hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. I think that he's not going to hit it for a couple more years. But I think just looking at what he has accomplished since he was drafted by the team, going into last season, obviously last year being the first time he was in the playoffs, following that up with all the workout videos that we've seen him with Jordan Palmer, with Sam Darnold, just seeing that his foot placement is better, that his accuracy is probably going to get better. Now, he doesn't have defenses that are flying at him during these drills and in these practices in the off season, but there's nothing to say that that this off season or even prolonged off season hasn't contributed in some way. So I think he's only going to go up. I don't see any situation where he digresses in any sort of way.
I saw that game against Houston when they played them in the playoffs, and like he threw that lateral or whatever that was. Like he kind of lost the ball.
Yeah, there's a lot of people talk about quarterbacks as quote unquote game managers, and a lot of people say, you can either be a game manager or you can be a quarterback. And I don't think that that's true, because as the quarterback, you have to be the game manager. You have to watch the clock. You're not just, throwing the ball. You're listening to what the play is. You're making sure before you call the snap that everybody's in the place that they're supposed to be. You're watching the clock. There's so many things that you have to pay attention to that you have to be a game manager. So when people say things, call other quarterbacks game managers, I don't really listen to it. And same thing with Josh Allen. But to the point that you were making, where he just kind of like tossed the ball to the side, hoping that somebody was going to be there and catch it. That's just, again, bad decision making by a young quarterback who was in his first playoff game and only his first couple years in the league. So hopefully this year you see it go up a couple of steps, but definitely within the next couple of years, where we're obviously going to be hoping that we're going to be in the playoffs each time, that his decision-making in those high-stress situations is just going to get better.
And last year, I saw Allen, like when pressure was coming at him, he would try to play hero ball and throw it downfield, and it would either go out of bounds or get picked off.
Yeah, he's not Aaron Rodgers by any means. That's a very Aaron Rodgers thing, to just kind of air the ball out and have somebody be there to catch it. That's not who he is. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Drew Brees. He's Josh Allen. And I think that just listening to his interviews at the end of last season, now into the off season, he was just on Mark Sanchez's show, the former Jets quarterback. He was just on his show, and he kind of touched on that a little bit, where he talked about his decision-making and how he's going to basically make sure that the ball is getting into the hands of the receiver more often than it's not. And obviously, as you know, we went ahead and we upgraded that receiving core in the offseason by trading for Stephon Diggs. We drafted 2 more wide receivers. So our wide receiver room, our tight end group, even our running backs are all going to be fantastic weapons to just surround Josh Allen with and help him out tremendously. But I really hope that he doesn't just go slinging footballs down the field, because Stephon Diggs is not always going to be there to catch it.
How do you think our running back core is going to do this year?
I think the running back core is going to do probably just about the same as last year, if I'm being completely honest. We didn't necessarily get any better at the position. Obviously, you drafted a young rookie in Zach Moss to replace Frank Gore, but you're just going to use Zach Moss in the exact same way that they used Frank Gore. Um, I'm hoping that what happened towards the end of the season, we don't see, where Frank Gore, who was more of an inside guy, was being used on the outside. Devin Singletary, who's more of an outside guy, was being used on the inside. So I'm hoping that that situation doesn't arise. However, I really don't think that we got that much better, because, like I said, you're just plugging and playing Zach Moss into Frank Gore's role. They're still looking to do running back by committee. That being said, I'm really pulling for our third running back to be Christian Wade, the running back that we got through the international exchange pathway. I think that he can very easily beat out TJ Yeldon. I know that that's not a popular opinion, and Bills Mafia really is split on that. I am a huge Christian Wade fan. Just even outside of his story, I think a lot of people don't realize how much he's done to make sure that he has a real shot in the NFL. And I think that TJ Yeldon, a guy who was a starter in Jacksonville and ended up becoming a special teams RB3 in Buffalo, behind guys who were both older and younger than him, now two guys that are way younger than him in the league. I think that a guy like Christian Wade can definitely beat him out. Whether or not that happens, whether or not either Yeldon or Wade take that RB3 position / special teams, I don't have an answer for that. But either way, I don't really think that it does anything to help increase or decrease the productivity that we're going to get out of the running back room. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Devin Singletary. I love Zach Moss. I love Christian Wade. We have good running backs that are on this team, outside of Tywan Jones, of course. But outside of that, we have good running backs that are on this team. It's a great running back group, probably one of the best in the National Football League. But from where we were last year to this year, there wasn't that much of an increase, in my opinion.
How do you think Singletary will do in his second year here?
Like I said, I'm a huge fan of Devin Singletary. I went out, got his jersey. I'm a huge fan of him. Outside of LaShawn McCoy, and really, Buffalo's had a long string of being able to draft and bring in really good running backs throughout almost its entire history in both the NFL and when we were in the AFL. I'm hoping and I'm thinking that he's, you see his workout videos that he had posted both when he was running up the hill. I forgot what Bills Mafia coined that hill, but the workout videos of him running up the hill and then, him working out with Josh Allen and the rest of the offense, you can see that he's gotten stronger from when he was drafted just a year ago and when he was on the team the year before. He's a lot stronger. He looks to be way more flexible. I'm just hoping that the injury that we saw last year is not a sign of things to come. I really don't hope that he's not injury prone at the NFL level, because that would suck, because even though we are doing running back by committee, you really don't want, he is RB1. He's the first running back on the roster. He's your bona fide starter, even though you're doing running back by committee. So you don't want to lose him, because if you lose him, then you lose the power of the running back by committee scheme that you're really running. And that kind of throws the whole thing off balance. And as we all know, offense for Buffalo has always been something like a seesaw. It cannot tip to one side more than the other. It has to be perfectly balanced in order to succeed.
How do you think our wide receiver group is going to be?
Wide receivers is a touchy subject. Not really a touchy subject. I'm sure that I could find a better word for that. But first off, you went out and you obviously traded for Stephon Diggs first and foremost, which was huge. Especially after the fact that Buffalo thought that we were going to get Antonio Brown. We thought, we just robbed the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL in total. And that obviously didn't happen. So being able to bring in Stephon Diggs helped out not even just the morale of the fan base and the team, but talent-wise, obviously upgraded it. Your first wide receiver last year being John Brown, being able to put John Brown and Stephon Diggs out on the field at the same time is going to greatly increase the productivity of the not just the wide receiver group, but really the Buffalo Bills offense, and it's going to ensure that we have more W's than L's. Obviously, as long as those guys stay healthy. Stephon Diggs is kind of a multi-purpose threat. He can run downfield at fast speeds and juke guys out and then go make the play. Like we were hoping that Zay Jones was going to be for us, and he obviously didn't turn out that way. But he's also a red zone threat, which we really haven't had before. Prior to Sean McDermott being the head coach, our red zone threats were really the tight ends or Sammy Watkins, and that really didn't work out well for anybody. Justin Hunter actually being a fantastic red zone threat, that in my opinion, just from watching him play when he was here for Buffalo for a short time before being cut and ending up in Pittsburgh. So going out and grabbing Isaiah Hodgins where they did in the draft, and he was the number one, the top wide receiver, red zone wide receiver threat in the country at the time that he was drafted in his last year of play, is fantastic for us because now we have one definite and obviously, and then two, maybe threats in the red zone that we didn't have before. So having diversity in your weapons is also important, which a lot of people weren't really thinking about and was obviously apparent in the way that we drafted. Now, that said, a lot of fan favorites like Duke Williams, Robert Foster, Isaiah McKenzie, guys that were starting a year or two ago, are now going to be on the outside looking in. They're going to be fighting for a roster spot. I'm a fan of Duke Williams. I think everybody in the Bills fan base is, just because he has that underdog story. I really don't, now that we've added height and now that we've added red zone threats to the team, I really don't see a scenario in which he beats out Stephon Diggs or Isaiah Hodgins, even as a rookie. I really don't. So I think Duke Williams is gone headed into this season. I think that they maybe keep Isaiah McKenzie and probably drop Robert Foster too, just because they're not going to keep that many wide receivers. I know a lot of people are saying that they will, but you got to think about roster management. They're probably going to add a third quarterback in Jake Fromm. They're not going to drop one. They're probably just going to keep one. So they're not going to keep 6, 7 wide receivers. They're going to stay at about 5, probably.
What about Cole Beasley?
Cole Beasley is pretty much our bona fide slot wide receiver. So I think that he's going to stay here for at least, I don't know when his contract is up, but I'm assuming he's going to be around for, another year or 2, maybe 3 again. I don't know off the top of my head when his contract is up, but he's our slot wide receiver. And like I said, the diversity in weapons, having slot wide receivers, which is why I said that they would probably keep McKenzie, because Isaiah McKenzie can fill that role if for some reason Cole Beasley gets injured or can't make the game. So having a slot wide receiver, having guys that can run downfield like John Brown and Stephon Diggs to get the long ball and being the deep threat, and then guys like Isaiah Hodgins and also Stephon Diggs that can be the red zone threat. I also think that Gabriel Davis is going to make the roster too, which again is why I think that out of the wide receivers that were there pre-draft, you're probably going to lose 2 or 3 of them to cuts when it comes time for preseason cuts to occur.
How many tight ends do we have?
We have about 5 or 6 tight ends. So we have Sweeney Knox, Kroom, Smith, Croft, Nate Becker. So you're at 6 already. I know that they might have a few more that they had signed, possibly. I'm not sure, but I know of those 6 definitely. Tight end is going to be as close as we get to a position battle for the team this year. I personally think that of those 6, we could lose about 3 or 4 of them. Personally, I think I don't really know. I mean, we all kind of know why Kroom is on the team. He hasn't really provided anything for the team in a season, season and a half, 2 seasons now. Um, so, Kroom could be an easy cut from the team. Croft is injured, or has shown that he's way too injury prone to be on the team. And I want to say it was during the Bengals game last year, which I believe would have been the home opener in week 3. It was either then or a different game earlier in the season. Lee Smith had more than 50% of the penalties. And we all know how bad Buffalo has suffered over the years in penalties, and that's typically coming from your defensive and offensive lines. But now it's your tight end who's giving you not even a couple, but more than half of the penalties. So I know that guys like Josh Allen in his Mark Sanchez interview said that, he learns a lot from Lee Smith, him being a veteran. And Lee Smith was even on the Bills at one point prior to this current run. But he's a guy that you can afford to lose. I think Knox showed a lot of promise last year. A lot of people take the negative view of Dawson Knox's performance outside of the few, superstar plays that he had where he was just running guys on left and right and say, he's bad. He's not going to get better. I think that he showed a lot of promise, and I think it's only gotten better or will get better in the offseason. And obviously going into the preseason. So I like Dawson Knox as a tight end 1. I think Sweeney is not a second tight end. He's definitely deeper on the depth chart at 3. I don't think Nate Becker, who would be, the 6th tight end that I was talking about, I don't think that he is anything close. I mean, he's pretty much a practice squad tight end, in my opinion. I don't know entirely too much about him, but I wouldn't be against Buffalo going out and finding another veteran tight end after dropping the other ones, or even trading for Njoku from Cleveland. Being able to trade for a guy who's going to be a bona fide TE2 or even can compete for that TE1 position with Knox, provide some of that veteran presence to Knox where, that veteran presence isn't producing anything or, getting more than 50% of the penalties. So that's just what I would see out of the tight end position. I think that, like I said, I think that's going to be the closest thing to a position battle that you get on the offensive side of the ball this year.
Do you think our defense will stay in the top 5, like they were last year?
Yeah, I do. Our defense, regardless of what the Madden ratings are saying, which I think they gave the Bills defense an 82 overall, which is crazy. Because I think, like you said, we were in the top 5 last year. I think we were overall, I think we were maybe the 2nd or 3rd top defense. I want to say 2nd behind Baltimore. If I'm wrong, somebody can fact check me on that. But yeah, I think outside of the Madden rating of 80, 81, 82, that our defense is definitely going to be a top 5. Baltimore, who, like I said, I think we were in competition with last year, only got better. Pittsburgh showed that they got a lot better by adding Minka Fitzpatrick with the Dolphins trade. And they kind of got snubbed in Madden too, but I think that we're definitely top 5. We're insanely deep at defensive end. We're getting deeper at defensive tackle. We signed a lot of defensive tackles in free agency and through UDFAs. So I think that we have, again, nowhere to go but up. I'm really excited to see Mario Addison play, honestly. He was somebody who was a low-key kind of a signing, but that I'm really happy to see perform on the field this year. Granted that we have a season, but I think we definitely will, and that we'll get to see a lot of these new guys play that we're excited about.
How do you think our cornerbacks will do, the defensive backs?
This is, if I had to pick one position on the Bills that needed an upgrade, even worse than the tight end position, just overall, it would definitely be the cornerbacks. Tre'Davious White is obviously number 1, number 2, going back and forth with Stephon Gilmore. They're both fantastic cornerbacks. For some reason, everybody keeps snubbing Trey White from the number 1 or number 2 conversation, and I don't really understand it. But that being said, I like Levi Wallace. Josh Norman, he's new to the team. He has promise. He performed better in Carolina under McDermott when he was there, and then once he was away from McDermott, he didn't perform that well. So if he can bring that back, that's obviously a major upgrade. But I think most teams you look at. So look at our safeties. You have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who are the hands down the best safety duo in the National Football League. You want that with your cornerbacks as well, and we just don't have that. Again, just going based off of last year because we haven't done a season now, so I can't say, oh, Josh Norman is that guy. But looking at like where Trey White is talent-wise and performance-wise, and looking at like where Levi Wallace is, again, I'm a fan of Levi Wallace. I love Levi Wallace, but he's majorly inconsistent to be. You want your cornerbacks to be here, and they're here, and that's where the problem is. So I don't want to overwork Trey. I certainly don't think Trey wants to be overworked. I'm hoping that, if Levi Wallace fixes the inconsistency issues, that he can get closer. It's not going to be, equal, but it'll be closer. Josh Norman, obviously. EJ Gaines, a name that Bills fans are very familiar with. Having him back with the team, if he can stay healthy, like he has been unable to do the last 2 times he was with the team, I think he probably competes with Josh Norman and Levi Wallace for that number 2 spot. And so, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see. Again, in terms of performance, though, it depends. We can go down, we can go majorly down, or we can go up, but still not by a lot. So if we can go out and either get a CB2, or if we can, somebody on the team like Levi Wallace or EJ Gaines stays healthy and surprises us this year, that's obviously preferable versus having somebody who's inconsistent or injury prone play next to unarguably one of the best corners in the league at this time.
Do you think our offensive line will be better this year?
I hope it is. Offensive line, we went out with UDFAs. We went out with, or not UDFAs, but we kind of touched on the offensive line with free agency in the off season. I think the biggest piece of the puzzle is Mitch Morse staying healthy. I really think that that's the biggest piece of the puzzle. When he was with Kansas City, he allowed zero sacks on Patrick Mahomes, who has a similar playing style to Josh Allen, which is why we went out and signed Mitch Morse when he was a free agent. So I think honestly the key to the offensive line is Mitch Morse. Whether they get better or not depends on if Mitch Morse stays healthy. It depends on if they find a spot for Cody Ford to sit and play at. I think this season, and really any comparisons, or not comparisons, but any analysis of Cody Ford has to be taken with a grain of salt, just because he didn't have the opportunity to settle into a role. He was playing guard and tackle on and off all season. So once he finds a place, I think he'll be a way better player than we saw last year on the field. And Deion Dawkins. I was a fan of Deion Dawkins' first year, but last year he was really inconsistent. So I'm hoping that he raises the play on that. So if we see if the offensive line does what it did last year, it's not going to get any better. And in fact, it might honestly get worse, having a repeat year of the same stuff. But if Mitch Morse is healthy, if Deion Dawkins is more consistent, and if Cody Ford settles into a role, which I think he's probably more comfortable at the tackle position, the offensive line is going to be solid. And as long as Josh Allen doesn't start hurling Vikings defenders again, he'll be safe behind that line.
Do you think like our home field advantage will be different without having the fans in attendance at the stadiums?
I think it will be. I really do. I don't underestimate the power of Bills Mafia, or, for fans of the Bills fan base that don't identify with Bills Mafia. I don't underestimate the power to still show some level of support, both at away games, here in Orchard Park, I really don't underestimate it. Whether they do it via social media, whether they hang up posters and signs at the airport or around no longer New Era Field, so the Bills Stadium, I guess we can call it for right now. But being there in place at the game, I think that hurts our home field advantage, and obviously our away advantage too, because we saw last year that away games were almost the same as Orchard Park games. Obviously, my background being of the stadium in Orchard Park just a few years ago, 2015, I want to say, 2015 to 2016. So, I mean, you can even see then that's the last game of the year. That's before McDermott, and it's still jam-packed. Last game of the year, January, against the New York Jets. So you can still see it is jam-packed. So I think it'll definitely decrease the home field advantage. But I also think that without fans, it evens out teams too. So it'll be must-watch football for the season, just because everybody's going to be evened out if nobody has fans.
What do you think the Bills' record will be this year?
Oh man, a lot of people have stuck with like 11-5, 12-4, right? 12-4, 11-5. I think the lowest we could possibly go is 10-6. I think 12-4 is probably pushing it. So 10-6, 11-5, probably around there. Again, though, that's depending on if the players that we know and from what we can analyze from can stay healthy and can actually compete and get to the positions that they need. So it's going to depend on whether you get a guy who's as equal or closer in talent level to Trey in the backfield. It depends on if the offensive line can stay healthy. It depends on if Josh Allen, he doesn't have accuracy issues, but if he can just take an extra step and an extra breath, and now obviously having more tools, more weapons offensively that he can throw to. So, like I said, I'd say at the 10-6, the 11-5 area. I think 12-4 is a stretch. Pretty much everybody, specifically in our division, like Cam Newton would have to be horrible. Sam Darnold, who I think is a pretty good quarterback, but is pretty close to his ceiling already, even though he got drafted along with Josh Allen. He would have to be bad as well. And, we all know, we've all seen that the Jets drafted well this year, and they've made some good moves. So I think the issue is really going to be in the division, how good the division is, how good we are to stay. So, that would have to, everybody else would pretty much have to be bad in the division for us to go 12-4.
Do you think like the New England Patriots team is dead?
Do I think they're dead? I don't think that they're dead. I think a lot of people are underestimating Cam Newton. I think if you're looking for somebody to get an honest opinion of Cam Newton on, Jay Spence from Buffalo Fanatics and the Code of Conduct podcast, he's done some really good analysis and narrative building around Cam Newton and what you can expect. Obviously, he was the MVP in the 2015 season, and NFL years are kind of like cat and dog years. It hasn't been 5 years in reality. It's been something like 10. So is Cam Newton older? Yes. Is Cam Newton going to play the same as he did in his 2015 MVP year? Absolutely not. Because not only because he's been battling injuries, but the Patriots don't have as many weapons as they would have. Their offensive line really hasn't gotten any better. Their defense is kind of fractured over the last couple of years. A lot of their players are now in Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, or in other places in the league. That said, the offensive line and the weapons that are there that Brady had were used to Brady, who was a pocket passing quarterback. Cam Newton likes to run. He's mobile. Perfect example of that, to bring it back to the Bills, would be our first playoff game with Tyrod Taylor getting injured and Nathan Peterman going in. Peterman was a pocket passing quarterback, and Tyrod Taylor was mobile. And that offensive line, the plays that were being called were made for Tyrod Taylor to be mobile. So it automatically collapsed. The players weren't used to it. And it showed, and it ended badly. Now, obviously, Nathan Peterman, not the quarterback that we thought he was when we got him. So, take that with a grain of salt as well. But with the almost non-existent offseason, with Cam Newton going to a new team, still having injury concerns, it's entirely possible that this year, the Patriots either even it out or they have a losing record. Now, if they build that up over the next couple of years, that's a different story. But I don't think that it's going to be – I don't think it's going to be what we've seen or have been used to in the last, decade or so.
Thank you for watching this episode of Let's Talk 716 Sports. I'm your host, Robby, and my guest is Ryan. And what's your Twitter?
My Twitter, I recently just changed it, so you'll have to give me 1 second. But my personal Twitter is at Ryan, RYAN, TJM, Caughill, CAUGHILL. Or you can reach me at Rivalry Pod BT if you want to talk hockey or anything like that. But I'll talk football, my personal one, all day long.